do the main topic last. It doesn't
Let's
really
talk about
matter.
Star Wars.
It doesn't really matter. So, Star Wars first. Spoilers. This will be a spoiler discussion. If you have not seen the film, we will be talking about integral points of the film that will be spoiling elements of the story. You have been warned. You have no right to come at either of us if we say something dumb like the Emperor is Jar Jar Binks. I know, scary, but okay. So, spoilers. We're going to move forward, though. So, Shawn, I have seen this film. Now, I'm going to start first with my rating, what I thought of it. This is after the first day of watching it. And I think when we're done, we can probably give a rating to the whole trilogy as well, like everything combined, and what we thought of this trilogy from Disney. I'd probably give this film, this is optimistic because I'm still new and still fresh, and it was at the very least fun. I didn't come out of it offended, like heavily offended at the very least. But I'd probably give it like a 6. Like a 6 out of 10. And that number might drop. But the reason I give it that is because The Last Jedi I would give a 5. And that number might drop as well. So I don't know. Either a 5 or a 6. And then Last Jedi would be a 4 or a 5. Because I definitely think Last Jedi is a worse movie than this is. And this one is probably, I think this one's worse than 7, Force Awakens, even though Force Awakens was effectively a rehash of A New Hope. But okay, I think that
poorly done rehash.
Yeah, what I heard, I think almost pretty much rung true is that these films, there is no longer depth in this franchise, at least for these new ones, because the moment you start to look for it, that's when like everything
unravels.
It falls apart. It fucking falls apart. The moment you take it. Also, man, slight rant. I hate what they've done to lightsaber fighting. And I think it's going to keep going this way. But the choreography in these films suck fat dick, bro. Like I remember fucking the fight in episode 3 between Anakin and Obi. And say what you want about the prequels, they have their own issues. But that fight on Mustafar was really fucking good. It felt like an actual sword fight. Two masters of their craft, or a master and an apprentice going at it. And it felt like a legitimate sword fight. What we have now is swinging glow-in-the-dark wiffle ball bats at each other, and it bothers the fuck out of me. It really does. Every single, Kylo Ren's supposed to be trained somewhat, like he's supposed to understand the importance of like.
Kylo was trained by Snoke, supposedly.
Yeah,
he was trained by Luke first, which means his core sword fighting should have been similar to
He should know how to use a fucking
Luke's.
lightsaber. You should never. There is never any reason ever. And even when fucking Rey was learning from Luke, when she was doing her training, quote unquote, it didn't look anything like lightsaber training. She's just swinging wildly at rocks and shit. And it's just like, they aren't sword fights anymore. It's just, again, you're swinging glow-in-the-dark wiffle ball bats at each other. And that bothers me because it's not cool looking, in my opinion. I don't think it looks cool. Them like beating the fuck out of each other with lightsabers. Like there's no intricacy
I like giving each
to it.
person their own individual style. Like, so I get it that certain characters could. I get what they were trying to do. They just did it poorly. Because what they were trying to do was kind of like, if you watch the original series, right? Like each person handled their lightsaber combat a little bit differently. Everyone handles their style a little bit differently. Like Luke played defensively when he was sword fighting, when he was lightsaber fighting, whereas Vader was 100% aggressive.
Yeah.
Vader was just constantly moving forward, whereas Luke would back up, parry, attack for a moment, back up again. Like Luke was fairly balanced, leaning a little bit heavily on the defensive side because Luke was never trying to kill anyone. And you saw the same kind of fighting happen with Obi-Wan, where Obi-Wan was defensively fighting, where he would attack to gain ground, but he was never trying to kill anyone. He was just trying to not get murdered by a fucking guy in black armor up until he allowed himself to be one with the Force. Like when he just became one with the Force, which is when the body disappears, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Your entire body just dissipates into Force energy and you're gone.
Yeah.
So I get that they were trying to give each person a style. And Kylo Ren is such a horribly written character. Actually, they're all horribly written characters, but Kylo especially which gets to one of the core problems with the series, where it's just characters are this because we need them to be this.
Yeah.
And this character is this because this character is this just because. Like there's no real development, there's no logical development, there's no internal continuity. Kylo Ren is an emo kid whose emotions are in flux, so he's going to do this, and this, even though it doesn't really give any kind of a smooth arc, even though his behavior doesn't really make sense. We're going to say it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense because of all this other stuff that we're just going to say on the fly. And the people that go to see these movies that just love them just because they're happy to see a Star Wars movie, who aren't going with any set type of standards, except they don't want it to be the prequels, they're not the kind of people that look for depth or an internal logic to a movie. They're the kind of people that will go and see a movie, and when a director says the character is this way because, or when the movie tries to imply the character is this way because, but without really building up the because, they're just like, oh, well, it's clear that he's conflicted, and so that's why he reaches out, and that's why this and that, because we said this one thing or we built this other thing. They put a lot of ideas and concepts out there, but they don't build on any of them. They just, like, Kylo Ren wants to destroy the Force. He wants to destroy everything and build everything up from scratch because he hates the past. Why does he hate the past? Does it have something to do with Luke's betrayal? Maybe. Who knows? Did Luke's betrayal fit in with Luke's character? No, not at all. No. That's not the character we watched in the prequel films.
That's weird.
That's not the character in the books. That's not the way the character was ever written. But yet here he is. Okay, Luke considers killing a kid because a kid is in touch with the dark side.
And you know what bothers me it baffles me, is that happens, and then immediately after, he decides to train Rey, who he is aware is the granddaughter of Palpatine. And he knows I'm 100% sure he knew that she had like issues with anger, and that is an element that you can be in touch with, that is part of the dark side and is mentioned multiple times.
Oh yeah.
So
but
why
it never gets into the training, it never gets into the discussion.
Well, yeah, but why the fuck would he decide after doing what he did to Ben to just pick up and train Rey? Like I did that was also kind of
because
weird.
He sensed the goodness in her or some shit. Like that's the thing, man.
They do that so often in Rise of Skywalker.
This is why the movies are so disappointing to me, and also why the second and third of the prequel films were so disappointing to me, is because the internal continuity was somewhat stronger in those. It just wasn't supported by the acting or the editing, the way the scenes were paced and everything in episodes 2 and 3, the way the characters evolved. It felt forced because there wasn't enough time. Like you saw Anakin going down the spiral